there seems to just be growth happening within the kind of maker community around here. And I think kind of across the country in general, kind of people have a hunger for getting like back to doing stuff with their hands. A lot of people have drifted away from that in their lives. And I think it's a really good sign that like a lot of people just gravitate towards the makerspace. But a lot of the growth has been like organic, word of mouth, and people just saying like, hey, did you hear about, there's a place called the Makerspace in town. Well, what's a makerspace? Oh, it's this place that's got like tools and workspace and you can like go there. That alone, I think, is like a really strong indicator of like, there's definitely something here and it's going to be around for a while.
You're listening to Granite Goodness, the show about optimism, progress, solutions, and problem solving in New Hampshire. My name is Andy DeMao, and today I'm coming to you from Treeline Outfitters in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. My guests today are Alex Nunn and Jennifer Stevens. Alex is the manager at the Port City Makerspace, and Jennifer is the director of engagement at the Chamber Collaborative of Greater Portsmouth. We talk about the Port City Makerspace, the awesome partnerships that they have, how Alex and Jennifer got involved, their philosophies of creativity, what they love about the Makerspace, and the people it attracts, and a whole bunch of other things on this episode of Granite Goodness. I hope that you enjoy it. Alex Nunn, Jennifer Stevens, welcome to Granite Goodness. We usually start these shows with people establishing their New Hampshire credentials.
Oh, my credentials. Well, I was born here.
That's pretty strong.
Yeah, I was born in Exeter and I grew up in Lee. I went away to school, but I did end up dropping out and I came back.
I moved here probably when I was like 3 or 4. I can't remember the exact age, but I was originally born in Illinois.
It's important you get it right. There are going to be people cross-referencing everything that you say on the show.
Oh, goodness. Yeah.
The fact checkers.
Yeah. I mean, I think I've been in the state for around 30 years, so whatever that's worth. I grew up when I moved here, it was a little like random. Like we moved around a bunch for like the first years we got here. Long story. But I lived in Stratham for like 11 or so years. And then my family moved to Dover and we were there for like 8 or 9 years or something. Uh-huh. And now I'm up in Rochester where I've been for probably longer than I think. Oh man, I think it's going to be 7 years now.
That's a good stretch.
Time keeps going like really fast.
Well, people like to joke in New Hampshire, like you're not really even part of somewhere for the first like 30 years. Yeah, never, right? You said you never want to leave New Hampshire. Why is that?
Yeah. I mean, I've been here more than anywhere else, but
right.
Beyond that particular reason. But it took me a lot of years, I think, to like start finding community here. Like growing up in Stratham, it was like kind of like rural-ish, and like I didn't wind up having a lot of connections there. But when I started moving when I moved to Dover and Rochester and was of a certain age, like I moved when I was around like 18, I started to like go out and find community myself, and like the kinds of people I wound up engaging with and like the paths that I crossed. Like there's just a lot of really cool people that I always kept encountering. And it's like, I'm sure that exists everywhere else, but I don't know, there's just something about what you find around here that just I'd find really strongly attractive.
What kinds of people or communities, like when people say, oh, I started to find kind of my circle, I'm always curious what they mean or who they mean or where.
Fair. I mean, there's all kinds of people, but I would say like the kind of creative communities around.
Yeah.
I think the first kind of like meetup or something I experienced was the New Hampshire Media Makers Group. Are you familiar with them?
Media Makers?
I think that's where we met, right? Yeah.
I was gonna say it.
Yeah, it's a meetup group hosted by John Herman in Newmarket. It used to be out of the Crack Skulls coffee shop that's there. Now I think they do it in the Mill building that's across the street.
Yeah.
But it's like a once a month meetup of like, people that make media. So like artists, actors, people that do podcasts. So
sure.
If you haven't connected, it's a way to like kind of like find another group of people that's doing creative stuff and just like talk about what you're doing. And that's kind of the core concept.
I just learned about the Creative Guts ladies.
Yeah.
They're super cool. We're going to do a thing. We're going to have an exchange.
Oh, that'd be really cool.
Did you have a similar experience, Jennifer, with the Media Makers community?
Yeah, I went to the Media Makers. I was a fan of John Herman because I used to be an arts and entertainment editor, and John Herman was always doing creative things like I don't know, scaling buildings or trying to go to, wasn't he trying to go to Mars? I don't know what he was doing. But
Those are for both charismatic qualities.
yeah, he's amazing. And that it's a very long running media meetup or whatever.
Yeah, it's still going.
Right. I didn't even know it had moved. But like I went like maybe 3 times and I remember seeing Alex there and I talked to him a little bit. And then there was a man who wore like a bunny suit and
Hot Wheels Spalding.
Hot Wheels Spalding, and he would write books of poetry and like he'd plant it in like the bookshelves so that people would just find it.
They'd get it by accident.
Yeah.
You'd be like, oh, this isn't what I meant to grab.
Yeah. And I think my husband went with me, and it was just cool to meet all these people. And then little Chris, there was like a woman who was sort of a DJ, and now she works for Darcy Creative, and she would go to the meetups. And yeah. So, and then another thing I go to, I don't know if you've ever gone, Alex, is what's the Creative Mornings?
I hear about this group.
Yeah, I haven't gone to Creative
I
Mornings.
hear positive things about it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So, but it was really good to see Alex, and it was probably like a foreshadowing of what was to come.
That's right. What was your first impression of Jennifer? Do you remember? Was she trying to scale a building?
I
like this
don't
other
think
guy?
so.
I'm not sure, but she might.
I mean,
she might
this
have been.
is probably going back like 9 or 10. No, more than 10 years. Because I haven't been to a Media Makers in a while too.
Like 2013 or so.
2013. Do you remember what you were promoting at the time? Were you promoting something?
No, I think I was just interested in what interesting people were up to, and maybe I could say I was promoting some social media or something. I don't know at the time.
Yeah. I think the first few times I went, I wasn't necessarily I didn't have something I was promoting. I went with my sister Georgine, who does a lot of like. At the time, I think she just started getting into freelance website design, and also is just a creative person herself.
Yeah.
And I went with her, and then we just kind of made a habit out of going for a while. And I think she was kind of the first person that I started talking to about the idea of a makerspace.
Tell us a little bit how you got involved in the Port City Makerspace. Like, how did this thing come into being, and when did you enter the picture?
So the space itself, I don't think I can do the true origin like good justice, because I was only involved like somewhat at the start.
Sure.
But it was founded by three friends that went to Green Mountain College together in Vermont: Clint Crosby, Ross Bean, and Zach Robinson.
It sounds like a band.
Yeah.
Sounds like a supergroup band.
I don't know, they might have played music.
Yeah.
But they, I think probably in college they threw around the idea of a makerspace, or they had heard like, the concept has been around for a little while, and it's become way more widespread in, I think, the past 10 years or something. But
there's one in Wolfboro now too.
Yeah, Wolfboro, Manchester, Nashua, like a lot of the big cities in New Hampshire, and like I think most everywhere. But
you interact with those ever? Like your sister?
Yeah.
Maybe they're brothers, I don't know. They're genderless.
Yeah, sibling makerspaces.
Right. Non-denominational makerspace siblings.
We do connect sometimes. There's actually a kind of monthly or bi-monthly meeting of like organizers from the different spaces. That kind of meet and chat about what's going on in everybody's spaces, like
yeah,
what are people working on. It's organized by Lisa Burke McCoy at the Council on the Arts.
Okay. But Portsmouth was the first one? Like, is this the original one in New Hampshire?
I think technically it's the second.
Okay.
The one in Nashua, Make It Labs, was in existence before we were. And they were technically in, I think, Lowell, whatever town's right over the border.
Yeah.
And then they moved to Nashua, I think the same year that Port City Makerspace started, which was like 2012.
Yeah.
So I think technically we're the second.
And how did you get involved?
So kind of going from the Media Makers thing, like my sister and I threw around the idea of like, a makerspace, like heard of the concept of like, oh yeah, what if like kind of creative people shared like tools and resources, and so that we didn't all have to like buy our own, like, or if people didn't have the space at home to set up a workshop. It's like, trying to do really weird art projects in your bedroom gets you a certain way. Like you can do a certain amount with that, but it'd be
particularly
cooler
if you want like a really niche or expensive piece of equipment or something, right? Like you have all kinds of things there, like laser cutters and lathes. I don't even know what a lathe is, but it sounds
it spins.
Advanced. It spins.
Yeah, it describes a lot of things. So I for a while I was running a maker meetup group in Dover, in a coffee shop in Dover called Seacoast Makers. And I think I'd been doing that for maybe a couple years. And then the three founders of this makerspace made contact with me at some point when they were first kind of forming things up. And I guess Port City Makerspace wasn't the original name they wanted to go with. They actually wanted to do Seacoast Makerspace.
Sure.
And they Googled around to see who had the domains or
Yeah.
if it was available. And then they found like, oh, someone's got it.
Yeah.
And so they contacted me, and they were I don't know if I should share it.
You can
but
share it. We can scrap this if you
Yeah.
decide later.
You could tell us.
It's not like that bad, but the way it was put to me was like they were originally going to meet me to like try to talk me out of like the name, like try to get it.
Oh, wow.
And then they met me, and I was probably like 19 or 20 at the time.
Yeah.
They were just like some kid running a meetup group, and they're like, you know what, we'll figure something else out.
We can't take this from him.
Yeah, something like that.
That's really so. Wait, so you had registered the domain
Yeah,
for Seacoast Makerspace?
for Seacoast Makers.
For Seacoast
.com,
Makers.
yeah.
Wow. So this has been a thing in the back of your mind for a while, like from the New Market group to starting your own group, like.
Yeah, the purpose of the meetup group was to try to like drum up interest and support for eventually creating a makerspace. It
Yeah.
was like I don't really have the resources to like rent a space, but
Right.
you know, I can put out a flyer and try to find like people that are interested in this thing too. Like kind of taking like a cue from like the Media Makers group. Like,
Yeah.
oh, you can put out a call for like people interested in this thing and like see who shows up. So that's what I did for a couple of years.
And the three guys, when they got in contact with you, were they like, ready to have a physical location? And then like, how did that all come together?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know at what stage they were at when they first approached me, but they were like actively seeking, real estate.
Mhm.
They may have already had a place lined up, but I think we're already geared up to like set up shop and they were gonna take like build it and see who shows up kind of approach too.
Right.
So like a lot of very similar spirit in that way.
I like that because it's a very different. Like normally you hear build it and they will come, right? Which is very
Right.
It's very different than build it and let's see who shows up. Which is a valid, that's a perfectly reasonable reason to build things, I think. But but it sounds like good fortune that these two entities ran into each other.
Yeah, and as soon as I understood what they were doing, I was like, well, what? I can't do much, but I'm happy to volunteer and help
let me
out.
get involved.
And so, yeah, like I started off for the first couple of years there, just volunteering as I had availability. At the time, I was working a day job at a screen print shop, JSR Inc. That was in the Dover Mill building.
Yeah.
Just running the screen shop side of things, like transferring designs onto frames, and then nothing super exciting.
So even like you've just been creativity in all these different ways. I mean, like that's a thing. Like to you, that's like, oh, this was just a day job, right? But like, I wouldn't know the first thing to do. If someone was like, hey, here's a job at a screen printing store, I'd be like, what? Like I wouldn't have any idea how to do any of that.
Oh, I didn't either, but they showed me, put this thing here, put this thing on this thing.
Yeah. I bet there's a little more to it than
There is,
you're
yeah.
letting on. So you're full time there now. Like you
Yeah.
you are the makerspace, like in a person. I know it's a team thing and like a lot of people help, but like if one person was the space, I feel like it's you.
That's what people keep telling me. I still don't fully agree with that, but sure. I'm the guy that's there all the time. So my role is the general manager, so I do kind of a little bit everything. So it's hard to like put it succinctly.
Sure.
But the makerspace itself has a lot of workspaces, a lot of resources that need kind of upkeep. It's a volunteer-based organization, so I work with a lot of people to kind of help make sure that those things are managed and things are kept like clean and in working order, and things get ordered when they need to. And then the fun part of my job is like exploring new opportunities to like run new programs or add new resources to the space. And
Yeah.
one thing we're working on right now is like adding a pottery studio as like another one more in addition to the other like 11 or so workspaces we've got,
Yeah.
and kind of keep expanding the community's toolbox, so to speak.
Right. Do you know all the workspaces off the top of your, like, I'll tell you the ones that I know, and you can tell me how much more there is to it than this. Stop that. Well, actually, I mean, maybe a little more context. You and I met because my wife used to volunteer at the makerspace in what does it used to be called? The Soft Crafts?
Yeah, the soft crafts shop.
And now it's
We changed to the textiles lab.
the
sometime
Waters
last
the
year.
Waters Laboratory.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, she enjoyed doing that for a while, and I would come occasionally to like her sewing workshops, and she'd always be mending pants and stuff, and no, really, it's a cool thing. Like, she turned me on to this whole philosophy of like visible mending, right?
Yeah.
Of like, normally when people mend things, they try and hide the fact that it's been repaired, and it's like, no, where I want to show off the fact that it's been mended and reused. And that was really cool. And she showed me how to sew. She showed me how to sew something on a pair of pants once, and it was a really fun time. So there's the Soft Crafts Laboratory.
Mm-hmm.
I know that there's a wood shop.
Mm-hmm.
There's like a metallurgy, maybe not like a metal shop. Do people do like blacksmithing? Is that part of it?
They can, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Has anyone ever made like a sword in the makerspace?
I don't think anyone's
That would
made a
be a weapon.
sword. Yeah. Yeah, we try to shy away
Yeah,
from
that's
weapons.
no good. Yeah.
Apparently, we're not allowed to do weapons.
There was a while where there was like a master blacksmith that was a member who gave us a lot of the equipment that we still have, and he would make a lot of those like Damascus knives that you see, like
I see
very
those
artisanal.
everywhere.
Yeah, yeah. You can't throw a rock without hitting a Damascus knife.
They're all over the place.
But no, there. But do you watch a show called Forged in Fire?
I've seen, if it's one of the random, I know there's a smattering of blacksmith shows out there. I've seen a couple of them.
Yeah, that's a popular one. They're always doing like Damascus stuff on there, and it's like a couple types of steel like kind of folded in a lot of ways, and
Yeah.
then it shows like a wavy pattern or like a crazy looking pattern on it.
Okay. So they got the Damascus knife workshop. I know there's a.
It's actually not a separate workshop.
Yeah, right. Just
kind of part of the metal
for
shop's
for the
umbrella.
weapons that we're not supposed to be making.
Right.
In the makerspace, there's like engraving too, right? There's like laser engraving.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that's
laser
that's
cutting.
in the electronics lab.
I mean, it sounds like there's pretty much everything, and there's like an automotive, like there's a whole mechanical.
Yep. Auto and bikes.
My gosh, it's a really amazing space. I mean, I've been there a fair amount, and each time I go, I discover something new, and people are always doing a different thing, and you're being bashful, but I want to like just take the opportunity to be like, that doesn't just like makerspaces of this level of quality and seriousness and kind of community and programming. They don't just like, they're not naturally occurring, like
I do know.
there isn't. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you do. And it takes work, and like you're behind all that. Jennifer, I want to get your story to the makerspace now. We've heard a little bit of Alex's, but like, how did you get involved in it?
I think I answered an ad for a board member. I think it was like a social media piece, and I said, "Oh," because before I was on the board of a homeless shelter, not the large one. And I'd been on it for 6 years, and so I was ready to make a change. And where I work, we're encouraged to, work with a nonprofit, and I was like, wow, this is, I am not as creative as these people, but I could like interview them, and I haven't done this very much, but I like to meet them and tell their story.
Yeah.
And I was going to take their pictures, but there's somebody who takes photos better than me, so I'm trying to find my place
We
still.
just went through. We just took some pictures.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
And I'm a female on a board that is largely male. There's 3 females. So
Yeah.
And I'm looking to get more involved. I've used a Cricut so far, and there's a fellow named Neil who leads a very popular welding class. And if I get the guts up, I will take maybe an intro to welding class.
You should.
We'll see. But I'm like a rare thing because I'm actually not a member. I'm a board member, but I'm not a member, which is legit. You can be that.
Sounds like you're taking advantage. You're just like, oh yeah.
I'm taking advantage of the makerspace, and because they're all very cool, and I'm kind of just jealous of all of them.
I know how that feels.
Yeah.
Yeah. Alex is one of these people who I feel like, and you can tell me if this is your assessment of him as well. Like, you could be like, hey, I'd like to build, and you could say literally anything, like a castle, like let's build a trebuchet, like a
Trebuchet.
full-on. Exactly.
That
This
was
is-
a weapon
you
that
see
was
what-
built,
Yeah,
maybe.
that's what I'm talking about. Like, I don't, like, who do you know who has built a trebuchet or knows how to do it? Everyone's built a catapult, but no one's built a.
Well, I kind of want to know.
Neil made one. Before.
I know, but I didn't know if we're allowed to talk about it because it's a weapon. But anyway.
I don't like talking about it.
But I actually want to know if there's anything in the place that Alex does not know how to do. So.
That's a good question.
I mean, yeah, we all know how to do some stuff. Like,
You know how to do everything, though. Is there anything you don't know how to do?
Well, so like part of my job is like I should know how to do a lot of these things for like safety reasons. So like,
Right.
you know, if people have questions or if someone's like doing something that like maybe is questionable, I can like approach them and talk to them and say like, hey, you should consider doing it with your hands like this far away.
Yeah.
Or something like that. So there's lots of things like I like to say I love to pick up skills in general, but I'm not always that interested in like finishing projects. So
Sure.
it's like one of my personal challenges. So I love learning how to do a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But like I guess my downfall is like I don't actually wind up doing a lot of things to completion. So
Yes and no.
my bench at home has a lot of unfinished stuff.
Yeah, but I could see how that would lend itself well to like your position, and I think it's probably something that makes you a really good fit for it. Is that, you know, like what people really need for you, right, or from you, and why they come to the space is that they come in and they know that, you know, the equipment is there, but like that's only half the picture, you know, or maybe even less than that, right? What they also need is like, you know, everything else. Like, can they be taught to use it? Can there be a community of other people who are doing similar things? You know, like you provide all this other structure in terms of like, you know, social and culture around, you know, the maker space. And even just talking to you a little bit now, like it's clear, like I had no idea that this is, I mean, it's kind of like when people say I've been training for this my entire life, you know, like that's the feeling I get from you of like, oh, I've been going to these maker meetups, you know, since when I was a teenager forever. And then I started my own. And then this space came around and it was just like, that's what I want to do. Like, so you're clearly someone who is like quite devoted to being in these communities of creative people. And, you know, as someone who kind of leads a space like that, it makes a lot of sense to me that you're someone who is like, no, I want to start. Like I want to, you know, I want to support, you know, 50 or 100 people or 200 people and doing a bunch of, you know, little or new projects instead of being like, no, I only need to do one complete thing at a time, right? So I don't know. That makes a lot of sense to me. You're a chronic starter, but you need that in a space like the maker space.
I guess so. That's
I
the
think
most
so.
flattering way you could have put it. So
I do
appreciate
a lot of buttering up on this show. Some people listen to it and they're like, all you do is compliment the guests. I'm like, I don't give a care. I like doing it. I try not to swear, but some people the swear and it's fine. But you haven't done it, so I'm not gonna do it.
Yeah, I grew up having a pretty strong filter, which I understand is like not the norm for this region.
No.
It's like growing up in school, I heard way more swearing than I heard at home.
That's
like,
right.
oh.
I would like to hear from each of you, like, what are some of your favorite things about the makerspace, or even, you know, some of the favorite programs that you run? I know you do a lot of collaboration.
We have a lot of collaborations that we've done in the past, but there's a group, I think out of Somersworth, Lydia's House of Hope, and they provide support for like unhoused mothers and try to help get them back on their feet.
Yeah.
So provide like shelter. They usually try to provide some sort of like training, like workforce development for them, so that they give them some skills that they can then like, you know, continue to like take care of themselves.
Yeah, just get some help and skills and education and maybe employment opportunities, right?
Exactly, yeah. And so we connected with them, like just through kind of our community connections. And we wound up kind of connecting with them through a scholarship program that we've got running for, like, the program supports like low to moderate income folks. And there's also like some funds for small business support. And this seemed like a good opportunity to connect with them and try to offer them like a program to offer them some like job training skills and like have them do welding. So we did for a couple of years now. I think we've taken whatever group they have at the time, because like it's a rotating group every year, I think.
Yeah.
And ran some workshops with them, doing like, you know, here's how to weld. And welding is one of those things that like in the industry, there's a lot of demand for welders.
Sure.
And like you're not going to be a certified welder after like our workshops, but it gets people like kind of the basic understanding of how to do it. And, you know, sometimes people get like a taste for it and they're like, I want to keep doing this. This is great.
Yeah.
But, you know, you can never really have that opportunity in a lot of other contexts unless like, you know your neighbor has a welder and they invite you to come into their garage and say try it out.
Where else would you learn? Where else can you get a taste for welding?
I don't know.
You know, who wouldn't give anything for a taste for welding. I'd like to learn. It's cool.
We have 2 different kinds too.
Yeah.
MIG and arc.
There's
I don't know. That's how little I know.
There's like 2 different machines we have, but there's like multiple processes. But MIG and TIG are the really popular ones. We do a class on MIG welding, which I like to say is like the hot glue gun of welding. You press a button and then it feeds wire out, and then
Okay.
electric arc melts the metal, and then everything fuses together. So like very, very hot glue.
And that's MIG?
Yeah.
What's-
It's short for
what's
metal
TIG?
inert gas welding. The acronyms don't really tell you about what they do.
It sounds like a pair of evil dwarves, like that are just up
I
to
can
no
hear it.
good.
Yeah.
And there's stick welding too. Or is that? Or is
Yeah,
that
yeah. There's also stick welding. So the machines we have are combination machines. They can be set up for TIG or stick, because I guess it's a very similar process electrically.
Yeah.
Like MIG is kind of a separate thing because it's like doing a bunch of stuff for you inside the machine, and then TIG is just like, here's an electric arc, and then you got to like add your material.
Sounds like
something
you know
that.
a lot about it.
It's part of my job.
Man, all right, Jennifer. Now I'd like you to answer the same question.
What was the question? My favorite thing?
It was like 7 questions.
Oh, I'm trying to think. I really enjoy getting to know the people. And when you're in the makerspace, it kind of reminds me of like a fortress or a fort. It's just really kind of quirky,
It
and
does
it's like
seem that
a little
way,
bit
yeah.
messy, and I'm sorry, and I love it that way.
Yeah.
And I just love the people in there. There's like no pretense. There's no like fake talk. I don't know. There's people doing their thing. And it's fun to get to know them. And if you ask about their projects, like they can talk forever about them. And there's just people doing crazy things good things for like Strawberry Bank. They're making arbors and
It's not just a trebuchet Damascus knife
no, but I
factory.
like trebuchets as well. And there's this woman named, I think her line is Angry Gato. It's like Mad Cat or Angry Cat. And
Sorry,
she
that's
makes,
her line or that's
her
her name?
line. I don't think her name's like Lindsay, I think.
Yeah.
What do you
But-
mean
Yeah,
that's her line?
Her line, she makes like stickers, and she's like one of very
Oh,
popular laser
yes,
cutting
her production.
instructor.
I thought you meant like this is like a verbiage, like a
Oh.
phrase she says all the time.
Oh, her
she's just
line
always
is like,
saying
I
Angry
have an
Gato.
angry cat.
Yeah.
Well, she actually does have the whole story behind it, which I've conveniently forgot. So, because the
Well,
story behind the angry
She'll
cat.
end up on this show eventually. Don't worry.
Yeah, she's pretty good. And yeah, the people there are just really cool, and I enjoy seeing what they're up to, and I just have to get up to something myself.
You seem like someone who's always up to stuff. I'm going to cut that out. You seem like someone who's always up to stuff.
Well, I don't do as many cool things as you do.
I don't know. I mean, Alex does a lot of cool.
Yeah, he does.
Do you tell me like some of your favorite, I mean, the trebuchet is pretty cool, and I'm going to try not to. I always end up fixating on like siege equipment somehow. It just always finds its way.
Like on every interview? Or?
Well, it did happen with Nate actually.
Oh, I think I read
That's
something
great.
at the end.
Yeah, well, because there's the networking organization Catapult Seacoast, and he thought it was like a real catapult originally, which is a reasonable guess to make, knowing some of the stuff that we do at the Makerspace. But yeah, it's like, tell me some of your favorite, like some of the craziest, most favorite, cool, creative things that people have made. I mean, you've been there a long time. Like,
Yeah.
not that you haven't. I mean, a trebuchet and some cool knives and helping vulnerable women, get back on their feet by like that's really cool stuff. But there must be so much more.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, like, sometimes I can't remember that well. 'cause There is so
We're
much
like,
stuff.
oh boy, what do I even
Did
pick?
Ross hot tub? What were those things? Sauna.
Oh, yeah, that was...
Was that made at the Makerspace?
Yeah. So if I stick to like big projects, like physically large, one of the early ones was called Surf Sauna, which was like a big barrel style like trailer
Oh yeah,
thing.
I've heard of this.
You've heard of it?
Yeah.
They haven't done it in years, but yeah, they made like 3 or 4 of them, and yeah, they're like a portable like sauna on a trailer, built like a big barrel. And they were doing that as like a small business for a while.
So that you can go
Well, I
pull
was just
up on
gonna
the
say,
beach,
and he
right?
was one of the founders, and now he zooms in from, is it New York when he
Yeah.
zooms in? So,
or potentially on
Wherever
the
he
ocean
is.
somewhere.
yeah.
He could be he zooms in from the sauna. He could be anywhere.
Yeah.
You don't know. It's an enclosed. He's in a box.
Yeah, that was one of our founders. One of the founders, Ross Bean, and Tyler Sauter, who was another like really early supporter, volunteer, like diehard Makerspace guy.
Wait, his last name's Sauter.
Yeah, spelled differently.
Yeah, but come on, that's pretty cool.
Somehow I didn't make that connection until now.
Yeah, soldering's it's
Yeah.
when the wires touch.
Right.
I think you're underestimating how little, like, you're immersed in this world and you live and breathe it all the time. Like, I wouldn't have the first notion of like what to like imagine a useless house husband. I'm below that. Like,
I'm sure that's not entirely true.
no, it's
I mean,
when it comes to all this kinds of stuff.
You've got a lot of impressive tech going on here today.
This
Like,
is
I don't
nothing.
know
This
what
is all. This is if this broke, I would just explode. I would have no idea.
I wouldn't know how to fix it.
I'd
either.
come over to the
There you go.
makerspace
I don't know how to
and-
fix this. That's something I don't know how to do.
Yeah.
I know how to open it up and look at it and scratch my chin. I can do that for you. Throw up. Oh,
What?
Throw a pot.
yeah.
Throw on a wheel. Throw.
Yeah, that's
like a
that's an area I'm
pottery?
gonna have to like brush up on. I haven't done any of that since like middle school, high school,
But you
something
can
like
run a
that.
kiln or whatever you have to do. Fire one up.
I mean, kind of.
Sounds dangerous.
I mean, a kiln is kind of a big toaster oven.
Okay.
It gets very hot.
You know what is funny though about something you just said. You're like, I don't know maybe how to fix this, but I do know how to like take it apart. You know, Jess talks about that all the time. You know, my partner, to remind listeners who used to volunteer at the Makerspace, she says, you know, I don't know, kind of similar to you. She's like, I don't know how to do everything, but what I learned from the Makerspace, what I learned from Alex, is a method for how to figure it out. You know, like that was new to me, right? Like, this is when it was what you just said of like, okay, I can take a step back, take things apart, take a picture at each step of it. You know, if I'm disassembling something complicated, and then understand like what exactly each part does, you know. And so it's like she has a whole, I don't know, kind of,
You're like a mentor.
yeah, like it's like the scientific method for solving stuff. She's like, I learned. I mean, she's fixed our tractor, or not a tractor, our lawnmower, which is it's a ride-on mower, so it's very complicated. Our dishwasher, our car, like all these handy things, you know, that like spending time with the space probably you really improve. I mean, I know it has. Like this person who I know really well, I'm telling you, spending time at the Makerspace was like a life-changing thing for them in terms of like the skills and the confidence that they gained from like diagnosing a technical problem.
That makes me so happy to hear. You have
Yeah.
no idea.
No, really, it's
like that-
It's a real thing.
I think that's probably like the main reason that I am like so interested in doing what I do.
Yeah.
Is to have that kind of impact. So yeah.
Right, well, it's not necessarily like here's a corny thing. The best thing you make at the Makerspace is the people, right? Because it's the maker space. It's the makers. I don't know.
It's the makers.
Well, I mean, it seems like that's been an important through line for you. Again, like
Yeah.
the community of creativity, you know, from what I can tell is like, oh, that was a thing that drew you into this whole world, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we make a lot of things. We make community.
Right.
That's another big one.
Yeah. And it's different from, I don't know, so like sometimes people have this notion of inventors or innovators as like tinkering away alone in a laboratory until like they alone figure the thing out. And I feel like that's very different than how, you know, making and creation like exists in reality. Like it's more often done better and more commonly in spaces like the kind that you run.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's like, I remember seeing some really inspiring quotes online. I was just like scrolling through Instagram, but
Yeah.
you know, there's some comment about like, you know, standing on the shoulders of giants kind of thing.
Right.
You know, a lot of people learn what they learn not just from themselves. Like no one exists in isolation completely. Like there's a huge world full of people.
Yeah.
Like we all learned how to like talk, think, and speak from everybody else. And it's
Right.
like, yeah.
Well, and people at the space are always, they're very helpful, right? I mean, you must see that all the time of like, kind of like what you were saying, Jen, like you go in there, you see someone's project and it's like, oh, what's going on? What are you doing? I don't know. The time I spent there, it felt like a very collaborative atmosphere.
Yeah.
Don't you have some kind of community nights? Because I have this mid-century modern record player that nobody wants to fix. And Alex said there's some kind of a night where you can bring things. I don't know. You just bring in what you're working on and people help you. Is that a true thing?
Yeah, for a while it's
Oh, it's
not
done?
running it's not running right now,
Oh,
but
okay.
yeah, we were running like it was weekly at one point, then it went to a monthly maker community night.
Mhm.
Used to be called Open Hack Night,
That's cool.
of just like, you know, like a couple hours of like come hang out at the shop and
Yeah.
like, you know, bring something you're working on. And it was like open to the public. So when it was called Open Hack Night, the goal was bringing people that are interested in electronics, which was like, yeah, that's how Rob actually found us. One of our
he's
like
great.
main volunteers in the electronics lab, who like he's there all the time now.
Right.
But he wound up connecting with us through that kind of community night.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, those are really cool, and I definitely want to like revive it. But it's just like an open venue to say like, hey, you don't have to like know anything. You can just be curious and come and see what's going on. And sometimes there wouldn't be much going on, and then sometimes people would bring like a really interesting project in.
What is it
and
you
be
have?
like-
An old record player?
Like an antique record player.
It's
radio.
one of those like console ones, and like I know one person who could fix it, but he's like, it's not worth it, and people just like throw them by the side of the road now just to get rid of them. But it's sentimental, and I actually would pay to get it fixed.
Sure.
So, but I can't imagine I would ever figure out how to do it.
And
But,
someone might fix it for fun
well, I don't know.
at
'Cause
Hacker Night.
Who knows? But we have other like cool nights, like we do like a costume night where the community can come in and get their costumes ready for Halloween.
Yeah.
So I'm sure Alex had a costume that he must have created.
This year I recycled one. I didn't have the time to put something together.
all right.
Well, that's actually another thing. Don't you guys work with like the Project Upcycle? Do you ever work with Oral? Yeah, with Jam. Yeah.
Jam.
Bike people.
Yeah, I mean, for other collaborations, Jam and a few of the designers from Project Upcycle ran a talk at our space. So we invited them to like utilize we kind of have like a classroom area in the front of the space.
Yeah.
It's like our function space, and they did a talk on sustainability in fashion, which was really cool. It was one of the kind of bigger like lecture style events that we've done in a while.
It was popular.
And yeah, there were a lot of people there. It's really cool to see like that many people engaged in that topic.
Yeah. She was the episode before you guys.
Oh, Jam was?
Yeah, I had Jam
Oh,
on,
cool.
sitting right over there like a couple of days ago. Her episode's not out yet, but
Yeah.
I met her at the she gave a TED talk last year. Yeah, I love TEDx Portsmouth. Alex, you gotta give a talk. I'm
Think
just gonna
about
keep
it.
pressuring. There's so many things you could talk about. I know the ladies; they're wonderful. What I like about the TED events is like like there's lots of places you can go where like you see people who they're really comfortable, like they public speak all the time, or they get paid to do it, and like the cool thing about TEDx events to me is that it's you often get amateur people, right, who like are working on a niche or interesting thing that like you've never heard of, and then they get elevated, they get to go on stage, and they're not used to doing it, so it's like and that doesn't happen by accident. They coach people through it and do a good job. And anyway,
Did they pick their theme yet?
yeah, the theme is what if. So what if Alex gave a talk about the makerspace?
Is that a little like too self-referential?
Yeah, exactly. I'd be curious to hear like what creatively interests you right now, Alex. Like you're someone who you have exposure to kind of this, may not be appropriate to describe it as like a playground, but it kind of feels that way when I'm there, of like, wow, you could do anything here. Like what kinds of projects are you interested in? Or maybe you have your hands full, but like, I don't know, like you built that trebuchet because it's cool, like what kinds of stuff do you like to do creatively?
I mean, yeah, I tend to have my hands full a lot, so I don't always make time for like creative projects, but I'm always like thinking about something to do. But this year I decided to kind of like try to dedicate to just like one thing at a time.
Yeah, it's hard to do.
Yeah, so something I've always wanted to try my hand at is just metal casting in general. And we actually have the opportunity to do like a couple of different types of that at the space. So I've been trying to like teach myself that and kind of learn with the equipment that's there.
And like what would you make metal casting? Like what is that?
I mean, kind of anything. It's just like creating a mold or a negative form of something and then pouring metal into that form and then having a metal version of that thing.
So could you make like a chest plate for armor?
There's probably a more efficient way. Like it's efficient for certain types of things. And like I keep having this debate with myself of like, well, what should I cast? Like what's worth the time and resources?
If you want to make me some greaves, I'll wear the greaves on every episode of this show.
Gotcha. Well, I think we have.
They're like so your ankles don't get shot by bow and arrows.
Yeah, we keep going back to medieval weaponry armor.
I can't help it. I can't separate my like association with all this stuff from that. But it's probably cheap and like it's so much more than dumb weapon things. Like it's actually very broad and it's it's practical. like the things you do at this space are deeply practical and not just like Do you want to
Not
make a
always.
giant broadsword for fun? Like, no, but
Yeah, I mean, I count stuff like that more in the category of art, right?
Yeah.
Like, people aren't really like making swords for like combat purposes these days.
Maybe
It's
they
mostly
are.
for the aesthetic and
Yeah.
like that's such a like nostalgic kind of period of time.
right.
So to that effect, like that's totally like in the vein of things that I can see happening.
Yeah.
But for process wise, I wouldn't do. I might do certain parts of armor with casting, but I think the thing it's best for is capturing like really fine detail. So you can do like jewelry and like artistic, like sculptural type pieces with metal casting really well. You can also make functional like mechanical parts, but anytime I think about doing that, I wind up being like, well, I don't want to design a machine right now. I just want to like make something simple.
Yeah.
I did actually test the other day. I have a little setup at home in my basement, just doing like little stuff. And I saw a hammer on my workbench and was like, I bet I could just make an impression of the hammerhead and then cast that. And then it's like, oh, yeah, that's like super easy. So I might be getting into like that for a little bit, like
Sure.
kind of making like tool making. It's like, oh, okay, that I can justify mentally as like a use of the resources
Right.
involved.
I can copy this hammer.
Yeah, and then like I don't know, maybe making his presence. Spoiler alert.
I mean, that would be, if someone was like, here's a homemade hammer, that would be amazing.
Yeah, I think that'd be cool, right?
That would be
and like every
I'd have
part
that
of it's
forever.
handmade.
Yeah.
And like maybe I could add something to it, like engraved detail on it. I don't know.
This is what a great plug for this. Like, if you're looking for a weird Christmas gift for someone and you don't know what to do, literally walk into the makerspace and be like, I just want to make something for my partner or my friend or my parents or family member. And Alex will help you figure out something cool and
Oh,
personal.
God.
Well, even if
I
you
would
were
love
just
to,
like,
but-
I want to 3D print, something, right? Like,
Yeah, well, that's why we do classes too. So I'm one person, and I actually really love to help people with projects. But being the one of two staff people,
Yeah.
I wear a lot of hats, and I don't always have the time to do like direct support.
yeah, you can't do everything.
But that's why we have like some awesome volunteers that take care of like different shop spaces or like watch the shop during certain times. And then we do a lot of intro classes too. So like one of the functions of the makerspace, besides for like providing space, is providing education. And like, we talk a lot about like, oh, it'd be really cool if like somebody showed me how to do this. Well,
Right.
we have those regular opportunities. So like welding is something you can learn any month that we're running the intro to welding class, which is almost every month.
Yeah.
And we try to run those classes for like most of the shop areas. Any room that's got like a kind of dangerous power tool or like a complicated tool like the laser cutter or 3D printer.
Right.
We try to have a class in those. And you're not going to be an expert by the end of it, but you're going to have enough kind of like ground to stand on to like, okay, I know how to set this up. I know how to do this. I know how to follow the steps to like make a simple thing.
Yeah.
And then once you kind of have that path in like any process, this is my belief. I mean, you can then like take that same path and then change it a little bit every time and experiment and like keep learning that way until you get to the point where you're like, I started learning this skill because I wanted to make this thing. And, I've tried like doing little building block steps to get up to that point, and now I can actually make that thing that I wanted to do.
I love that. It's like a technology tree in like, well, this isn't an analogy.
video games?
Yeah, most folks may not understand like the video game, but like there's all these games where you like build civilizations and you discover different pieces of technology along the way, and then that unlocks like other things, and it's like that, but for a person,
I mean, that is kind of just how it works. Like
Yeah.
you wind up getting good at a lot of these physical skills by practice and just doing it a bunch of times.
Yeah.
And learning from others. Like a lot of other people have figured out problems that you're trying to solve.
Yeah.
It's nice to be able to just like, look online and say, how do I do it this way? Is this a thing? Oh, okay. See, I needed to do it that way.
Right. You don't have to be the first person ever to figure it out.
Yeah.
Right.
But the cool thing is you can figure out what the kind of the usual process is and then change it from there. And then you might discover something new and fun.
Has the notion of what a makerspace is changed a lot? Like technology is always changing, new tools and machines are always being built. If someone was to time travel and go to a makerspace like 20 years ago, does it look really different than like, I don't know, what you would consider a modern makerspace? Or or are the fundamentals like really the same of like, no, you have an auto shop and you have a wood shop and all that, or like, I don't know.
When was Nashua started?
Yeah, I was going to say, how much do you know of other makerspaces?
Well,
Like, you know about Nashua, right?
I just don't know how long ago they actually were calling them makerspaces. I just don't know how long ago they were actually calling them makerspaces. But I would imagine maybe they didn't delve into soft crafts as much, and
Sure.
maybe it was just someone's workshop that they had somebody hang out
Well, I
with
feel
them.
like people just used to know how to sew. Like it was the idea that it was something you would learn. I think might have been unusual.
Yeah,
100
but now
years
there's
ago.
like cooler sewing, like
yeah,
what your partner does. What did you call it?
A
Visible?
visible mending.
I think that sounds cool.
Yeah,
You
And-
probably know.
And another thing is every makerspace winds up being a little different. I think a lot of the ones in New Hampshire have like similar like shops and resources, but they wind up also kind of being tailored by the community around it and like what people are interested in, who shows up to say like, I think we should do this.
yeah,
So it's like somewhat of a democratic process in like the formation of these spaces.
yeah.
So you'd have to look at like one space in a 20-year time span to
Right.
to really get a sense.
Democracy is exactly the right word to use, right? The first thing you mentioned, like this weird laser cutter that would be like $50,000. You could do it. You could go buy it. You could go and pay a membership fee that would be much more reasonable than just buying the thing outright, right?
Right.
So it's like making all this advanced technology really accessible to regular people, outside of, the most advanced, I don't know, privatized R&D labs, or labs that the government had. Like, I don't know. It's a very people power kind of thing that I think is really cool.
Do we still have some scholarships? I was wondering if there's anything you can tell us about the scholarship program.
Yeah, that's so in general we try to like set ourselves up so that like the cost of membership is approachable. So
Yeah.
it's like 50 a month is like the basic level, and then there's also like student and vendor discounts, there's like volunteer discounts. But then we also run the scholarship program so that like people can have like a 3-month run of free membership to like get into the space and
Yeah.
explore, and it comes with a couple of classes too, because sometimes people don't really know right off the bat like what they're going to do or how to do something.
I mean, that's less than like a gym membership a lot of places. Like
yeah.
Except for Planet Fitness.
Well, but like,
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know, maybe people love going and hanging out at Planet Fitness and building things, but it's different. Like
They might yell at you if you start building stuff at Planet
we're
Fitness.
just trying to build a trebuchet
like,
in the
what
back
are you
of Planet
doing with
Fitness.
our weights?
Yeah. I have paid more money for worse experiences. That's what I would say. I think that, $50 for the base membership is like very, very reasonable considering what you get in return.
Wow.
Hey, today happens to be Giving Tuesday. Do you want to share a little bit about like who pays for the makerspace? How does that all happen? How can people support you?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, the Makerspace is kind of set up uniquely in that we're mostly sustained by memberships, but that only goes so far. So a lot of the donations, when we're trying to do like growth and expansion and, looking at kind of larger development, we really rely on donations to get any of that done. So a lot of our donations this year have gone to like the pottery studio build out that we're working on. We're actually also going to be running like our annual appeal end of the year campaign kind of thing to go towards helping with that and some other kind of larger goals we've got. But it also allows us to, better do everything that we're doing.
Yeah.
So better resources, maybe more staff time.
Well, it's a great ROI for the community. That's what I would say. I would think of all the different things that you help make possible.
Yeah, I wish I had a better memory for like all the stuff I've seen people do, but
Well, it's all on the website. People they'll see in the show notes. They'll go
There's
and
that
they'll
guy
see.
that built the robot, and then what happens? Like,
oh yeah, the DJ robot helmet. It was like
I don't know how it would dance, or I don't really know what it did, but he's very cool, and I will see him unicycling his way to like the makerspace.
It's always the
very
unicycle
cool.
people.
I
They figured something
I
else
forgot
out
about the unicycle.
that the rest of us we're just not.
They're cool.
We're not on the level.
But yeah, I mean the makerspace has facilitated like people learning new skills for the first time, like I don't even know. I should probably have looked this up beforehand, but like
Yeah.
easily hundreds of people have
Yeah.
learned like wood shop and welding in the facility, and then some people have like kind of like learned the skill and then kind of transformed it into like a side hustle or like even a small business.
That's
which
very
is really cool.
Well, that's a good note to kind of go out on. That's a very optimistic thing Tell me in a sentence or more, like what makes you optimistic about, your work or the future of makerspaces or the people there?
I mean, I think optimistic about. I mean, just the fact that like there seems to just be growth happening within the kind of maker community around here, and I think kind of across the country in general. Just like kind of people have a hunger for getting like back to doing stuff with their hands.
Yeah, Right to Repair is a whole movement.
Yeah, you're aware of that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I get their newsletter, but yeah, I'm a big fan of Repair myself. But I think like a lot of people have drifted away from that in their lives, and like I think it's a really good sign that like a lot of people just kind of gravitate towards the makerspace. It seems to me like I don't know that we do a whole lot of advertising, save for like the past few years where we've actually had more active help there. But a lot of the growth has been like organic, word of mouth, and people just saying like, "Hey, did you hear about? There's a place called a Makerspace in town." Well, what's a Makerspace? Oh, it's this place that's got like tools and workspace, and you can like go there. It's like, oh, and like that's how most people find out about us.
Yeah.
And so that alone, I think, is like a really strong indicator of like there's definitely something here, and it's going to be around for a while.
I mean, coming on this show is huge. If you're on Granite Goodness, it means like you've made it. How about you, Jennifer?
Oh, I'm optimistic because even though a lot of Portsmouth is polished, which is great, I think we have our little fort that you can find your way to, and you can take your tours on Saturday or whatever with Alex, and it's great. It's exciting to explore it, and just keep making things. Make a mess. Someone else will clean it up. No, just kidding.
Well, someone else will be inspired by it or make their own. Like, there's a lot to like about that.
Yeah.
It's creative. It's different. It's not polished all the time, but it's creative. All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank both of you very much for coming on Granite Goodness.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.
Hey there, thanks for spending some time with us, and I hope you enjoyed the conversation. You can learn more about today's guest and how to get involved with or support their work in the show notes. If you'd like to suggest a guest for the show or have any story tips for our Good News in New Hampshire newsletter, shoot me a message at hello@granitegoodness.com. Music for this episode was provided by the band Sneaky Miles, who hail from Newmarket, New Hampshire. Until next time, I'm the creator and host of Granite Goodness, Andy DeMeo. Thanks for listening.